You're listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. This is the podcast where I talk to successful women in entertainment and hear their stories. For this episode, I got to meet Lorena Gordon. Lorena is an award-winning writer-director. Hailing from Queens, Lorena began her journey working on sets at the age of 18 with directors such as Martin Scorsese, Sam Mendes, and Ben Stiller. The stories Lorena is most passionate about telling are about the human condition and the complicated facets of life. Lorena feels it's her responsibility as someone who is a woman, Latina, and gay to be a voice to the disenfranchised. She has directed and produced short films, including Fallen Hero, The Uninvited, The Cure, Alone, and Times Like These. And most recently, Lorena wrote and directed the short film At Last. And wait until you hear the story about that. She has also combined her love for music by directing several music videos and commercials. You can find us at theother50%.com for added features, photos, show notes, and the merchandise. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts and all of the podcast places. Okay, here's my conversation with Lorena Gordon. Have a listen. What do you do?
I'm a writer-director. I'm originally from New York, and I moved out here about 6 years ago.
Out here is in LA?
LA, yeah.
How do you like it?
I love it. I love it. I don't know, I love the weather. I love the people. It's a different vibe all around. You've been to New York. It's
I live there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's different, but I'm grateful to have been born and raised there for sure. To make it out here, I think it makes you kind of just hustle and just a little bit harder to navigate.
You got that New York work ethic and then come to where this is all happening. Okay, so tell me how you got interested in writing and directing film. How did you know that's what you wanted to do?
I was 8 years old, and for some reason I managed to go to the theater to see Titanic. That was like the first live action film I saw as a child, which changed my mind. And just changed.
It was amazing.
Yeah. I remember being in my seat and when Jack Dawson like drowns and all of that happens, I just remember crying. I'm like, oh my God, what is happening to me? And, just seeing like the audience too kind of just react, emotionally. And I was like, whatever this is, like, this is what I want to do. And when you grow up, especially in Flushing, Queens, like do you just think movies are magic? They just kind of come together magically. Yeah. It's just like that. So it was just, eye-opening to see the process of making a film and the different departments and all of that. So from there, I kind of just like grabbed the family camcorder and just started making like short films and, forced my cousins into acting into them. And just, we would go around Central Park, just different genres and just make like, 2-minute little films. So I think it grew from there. And then also just the need to tell stories and just feeling different and like an outsider, since I was young, and then kind of film being my release and my escape.
Tell me more about that. Why did you feel like an outsider?
I think when I was growing up, I just knew I was different. I didn't know what that different, why that was. I think part of it had to do with, my sexuality and being in the closet and not being able to kind of be my true authentic self and kind of putting a facade out to the world. And also when I was 13, I was diagnosed with lupus. So that also kind of, made me feel, I knew that I was a teenager, I was 13. So that's kind of like so primitive in your teenage years. And, people were going out and, all of that. And I was at home and, being monitorized and taking medication and all of that. So I knew my experience wasn't the same experience that other people my age were having. So I just kind of felt different and lonely for sure.
Is that particularly young to be diagnosed with lupus?
I don't know, actually. I think it kind of varies. I know people that I've met people that have been younger and have been diagnosed. I just knew that it was kind of shitty at 13 because your body is changing and, you're a teenager and all of this. And it was kind of like a shitty time to be dealing with all of that. Yeah.
I just knew it sucked.
Yeah.
So you channeled all that into storytelling.
I did.
Did you start writing?
I started writing. I think I started more just kind of picking up the camera and kind of just creating stories as we went along. But writing, I think definitely happened like after being diagnosed and kind of just writing what I was feeling and being bullied and all of that and kind of what that felt like and, writing down my experiences. So yeah, it definitely inspired that.
Did your parents kind of support you in that kind of expression? Like, how did you think I'm going to cope with this by doing this?
Yeah. My parents got divorced when I was 4. So I was raised by my mom, my single mom, and my brother. And they've always been supportive. And, even I don't remember how old I was when I saw like my first Oscars and I was like, I want to be a movie director. They didn't like laugh at my face or anything like that. And I think they've always been supportive and saw that became kind of my release and my passion. And they've, never questioned or anything. So they supported, my filmmaking journey. And yeah.
So did you go to film school?
I did. In New York, I went to the School of Visual Arts for about, I want to say 2 years. And at the time, I just felt like I was so eager, because growing up in New York, you're surrounded by like these amazing film schools, NYU and Columbia and all of that. And, I had my first PA job at 18 for the first iPhone that came out. And it was amazing because it was directed by Mendes. And, being 18 and being surrounded, and the cinematographer was like Harry Savides, who like works with Sofia Coppola, and like a legend. He's a legend,
This is quite a commercial you were on.
Yeah. For a first time ever being on set, I think, that was just eye-opening. And
how did you get that job?
I took every opportunity, every like Craigslist PA for credit and a meal opportunity. And that kind of just, landed to something else. So it was just kind of networking. I was a real hustler, just trying to be on set. I just wanted to be on set. So, that being my first, exposure to filmmaking, and it was just, wow. And I was like, I have to do I have to go to film school? And I remember I like went up to like Harry Savides and I was like, excuse me. Cause I know that he had gone to the School of Visual Arts. And I was like, do you think film school is necessary? He was like, no, I just go get like a liberal arts degree and you'll be fine. I was like, okay. But then, feeling the pressure to go to school, but, I want to go to school for something that like I love and I want to do, So I just ended up, because I had also applied to Emerson in Boston, and that had been like my dream school. And I had been rejected the first time I applied. So being accepted the second time around was big. And I felt homeschool, like I lived in Massachusetts for a year after high school, and I just missed New York. So, and my family. So I went back to the School of Visual Arts, and there it's this little world, and you get to like make films every weekend and, access to all this equipment and all of that. So towards like the second year, I just wasn't feeling it anymore. I felt that the films that, my classmates were making were a little more kind of like not the realm that I'm used to, or that stories I like to tell. And I was starting to question, like, is this the right place for me per se, to continue my journey? Can
you give me a for example?
For example, I mean, like the stoner pics, like the friend stoners, or like, not that I have any problem with it, but they're just not my cup of tea, if you will. Or like the zombie movies, at the time. I think that was like, I'm trying to give you like a year. I graduated high school in 2009. So like 2011-ish kind of era. So that was like, in zombie vampire movies and all of that. And here I was making like compelling, dramas of like, people kind of getting diagnosed with cancer and like family dynamics, So I was like, yeah, I remember I had a conversation with my production teacher. His name was Chris Newman. He was the sound mixer for, The Godfather, You've Got Mail, and the original Exorcist. Like, this guy knew
no slouch.
Yeah. So I was just like, and it's super expensive. And again, I was like, should I just stay here, or what do I do? And he was like, you got it. And I was like, what? He was like, you got it. So regardless of, whether you stay, I don't think you should stay personally. You got it. You'll be fine. And that was like kind of like the reassurance I needed, in that, moment as like a, I think I was like a 20-year-old to be like, okay, I think I'm gonna leave this and I'm gonna go follow the road less traveled and kind of just do it on my own, and yeah, that was when I left film school.
And did you move out to LA right away, or did you stay in New York?
I stayed in New York for about maybe another 2 years. My focus once I had left film school was to be on as many, film productions as possible. And we're so spoiled there in New York.
Yeah.
So I just PA'd for those 2 years on like big projects, TV shows, commercials, and all of that, just to go ahead.
Yeah, I saw your PA credits are on like really solid work, but you've also already made a ton of shorts.
Yeah.
I counted like 7.
Yeah. Those are like my film school ones. Those are like super small, but they were still like films we made. Some we shot in like Central Park. Some I was able to shoot at my old high school. Like they're all meaningful, and I'm proud of each one of them. But those are like the miniature scale ones that we made. Yeah.
Now tell me about you have one coming out soon, don't you?
Yes.
At last?
At last, uh-huh.
Okay, tell us about that one.
So that one I wrote last year, about a year ago, actually. I wanted to write something for like this initiative program that was happening. So I was trying to think back of like high school, and if I can go back to high school, what would I do different? What would I do differently? And prom was like a recurring thing in my brain, because I just remember it so vividly and how kind of little traumatizing it was for me. And just, had I had the courage that this character has, and I guess vicariously live through her journey, because I wanted to wear what I wanted to wear at prom. I wanted to dance with who I wanted to dance with at prom. I wanted to just express myself, like the way I wanted to do so, authentically. And in high school, everything just seems so much larger than life. Everything is so important. It's so important. If I'm not popular, I will never be popular. If this boy doesn't like me, I'm not pretty enough. And I always found that fascinating, because, from experience, I can tell you that like all of that is like total garbage. And you start laughing when you think about it. Oh, why did I put so much like thought into this? Like
well, they tell you it's the best days of your life, which I think is such a horrible expectation.
Yeah, definitely. It's all this pressure, and then, the pressure to like get into a good school and what are you going to do in college and all this stuff, it's so, I knew I wanted
terrible what we do to young people.
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to kind of be in that realm of like, your late teenage years and high school. So I just started kind of writing, what this character's journey would be through in a night, going to prom or getting ready for prom, going to prom, seeing her crush and her ultimately accepting and coming to the realization of like, this is who she is, and fully accepting herself and then coming out to her parents. So it just kind of began out of this, idea, the genesis of like, okay, I want to tell something personal. I think this is probably, my film before was a little bit, I think, more personal. That was inspired by my mom's experience. But for me, I think this was the one I needed to tell because I had never made anything to tap into like my queerness, if you will. I never really, everything I've made before has never had any LGBTQ subject in it. So I knew I was ready to tell this story and that it was important to tell a story like this, and have, a character who just happens to have Down syndrome, as the supporting actor and supporting friend for this character. So it just kind of started growing as this idea. And
it was great. And George Lopez is in it.
Yes.
How did you do that?
So initially when I was writing, I kind of write with actors already in mind, if I can, it kind of helps with the writing process. And I had worked with Marlene, who's the mother in the film before, and Zach I had seen in Peanut Butter Falcon, and George, I was like, oh, I'm just kind of right with him in mind, because how amazing would it be to have him in the film? And then, it was just one of those things that I think it was like serendipitous, honestly, that I run into him. And, I'm like, oh my God, like this is someone that I've seen on like Friday nights on Nick at Night, growing up and watching his show and stuff. And
hold on. You ran into him?
Yeah.
Where'd you run into him?
In Santa Monica.
Like on the street?
He was coming out of there was like a little like studio, and I think he was coming out, and I just happened to like walk by, and then I saw him.
So you weren't at an event or a networking, or you walked by him on the sidewalk after you were writing this film with him?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about that little interaction.
Okay. So, I was like, oh my God, I've never been, I'm shy a little bit, but when it's about film and all of that, you have to, you just have to like go out and get it, so shyness really doesn't take over me. And, I've been lucky to be surrounded by, all these talented people, and you just kind of have to like go for it. And I was like, this is my opportunity. I have to go for it. So like, I just go up to him. I'm like, hi, George, my name is Lorena. I'm a filmmaker. And he was like, oh, what are you working on? It's like, well, I have this script, and, he's like, okay, very cool. And, when you meet someone, it's sometimes you get this where it's like a true, genuine, like, I'm listening, I'm paying attention to what you were saying. And I felt that with him, and, just kind of telling him that I had moved here from New York, and, I'm a filmmaker, but I'm not doing that right now because I'm working, but this is my passion, what I want to do. He's like, okay, cool. But, send me, I want to see, what you do. So, and then he like gives me a hug, and I was like, whoa. So that hug, it just felt like a very paternal, hug. And maybe it's me not like growing up with a father, that I kind of felt this, like protectiveness and like comfort. And I was like, oh my God, I had this aha moment of like, this is her dad. This is that character. This is the character for sure. And yes. And then after that, I just, we kept in touch, and I sent him the script, and he said, I want to help you. I want to do this. And, it was one of those things where because of his schedule, and he started to go on tour, for that Netflix special that's about to come out later this month. That's what he was on tour for. And, us not knowing exactly when we were going to film because of, just logistics and locations and all of that. But I think when things are meant to happen, they will happen, because it just became so seamless after that. Once he had given me his word that he was going to do it, I looked no further. I didn't cast that role or have anyone else for backup. Like if something were to come up for him, then we would have been fucked, because I only wanted him for that role. So yeah, I think it's just him kind of seeing something in my story and in me, and him wanting to kind of be a part of that, because, I just...
Amazing.
Yeah.
So where and when did you shoot it?
We shot this in January 18th through the 20th. So
of this year?
Of this year. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So what's the plan with it? Because it looks like it's done. Is it done?
We're still waiting for our final sound mix. So we are done editing the film. So we just have to finish. We were working with a composer, and that finished. So now we're just waiting for the sound mix. And then after that, it's kind of weird because some festivals are happening. I hope that, the festivals that are scheduled for 2021 will happen, and we will be able to exhibit the film like in a theater and with an audience. So, there was really no rush once, COVID happened. I know that we wanted to finish the film by like June. And then it was just a decision with my producers and my post-production team to kind of let's take our time. There's really no rush. We're not, some festivals aren't even really, accepting submissions at this time. So let's just kind of, we've worked so hard on this film. So it's only right for us to, really give it our undivided attention and time, as we cross the finish line. So
you're not going to rush it out.
Yeah.
during this weird COVID time?
No. I think the first festivals that we're applying to, like their deadlines are in late July. Sorry. Late July. Yeah. Late July.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't even know what day it is. Sorry.
I'm saying this is the year where time stood still.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what day it is. For the record, I think it's June 21st today. So tell me what are you thinking about as far as your plans for your career?
So I just want to tell compelling, honest stories. Like if I could just do that, that'd be amazing. With this, I'm hoping that this kind of just opens doors and, brings opportunities to direct, other projects. A feature would be nice after this. I know that I have a feature written for At Last, because it kind of, when I was writing a few years ago, I wanted to write about, this coming of age story, being raised in a Hispanic household and, discovering your sexuality and what that's like. I came out when I moved out here and I was 22 or 23. So in my mind, that was like so late. I was like so late to the game and kind of experiencing dating for the first time and like all these things that you experience when you're in high school, kind of experiencing them in your mid-20s, and what that's like. So
can I ask you a very personal question about that?
Sure.
Because we are in the age where it seems like people come out in middle school now. Was it your family culture or you weren't quite sure, or why do you think you were 23?
That's a great question. Several reasons. I think growing up, you just know that it's wrong, right? You just have that kind of embedded in your head. So you're just like, okay, that's wrong, and I'm not gonna even attempt.
Not gonna entertain that.
Yeah, that idea. I'll just keep that for myself. Like no one's gonna know, and that's yeah.
You're like, I'll be fine. My whole life.
Yeah,
it'll be fine.
Yeah, and that's what you think. So I was like, okay, so that's not going to happen. And then I think that's where media has like a huge responsibility as to what we're viewing, as an audience and what stories we're telling. I think it's like super important because I can only remember like one film growing up in high school, and that film was Pariah, and seeing that or like my experience reflected on screen and being like, wow, I feel validated and my experience matters. And this is amazing. And I remember again, crying in the theater. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I know how empowering that feels, to see your experience. So, I think partially was all like, so it was the fear, I guess, of preconceived notions and what society has already kind of, embedded in our brains. And then my family was a big one. Like I said, I have a single mother and my brother, and we're super close. We've been together since I was 4. So I think having to burden my mother with something else and, something that, you don't kind of grow up saying, oh, I want my child to be gay type of thing. So I didn't want to hurt her or, have her have another burden in her life. So it was like, I don't want to do that to her. And then, lastly, growing up in New York, people are like, how have you like not been out, or how did you not, embrace, the very friendly LGBT culture in New York? And I think I just, the fear of like someone, someone I knew kind of watching me and relay that to my family was like a big fear of like getting caught, by someone. So I never, really got to embrace that in New York. So I think fear, shame, disappointment were the key things that prevented me.
And then when you did come out, how did it go?
So I moved out here to LA and I went to West Hollywood for the first time. And at that time, like I already knew I was gay since, fairly young. And then again, once I knew that this was something that I wasn't going to let out, I kind of just dug it deep in, and I never thought about it, tried not to think about it and all of that. So then come out here and, you're kind of like starting a fresh slate already, moving to a different city and all of that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try to just experience life a little and, find experiences that are true to me. And just being in West Hollywood and being surrounded by, the people and all of that, it was kind of reassuring to me, like, yes, this is who you are and this is your community.
And it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Like, look at all of this. And so, I just kind of, that was the point where I had come out to myself and kind of really fully accepted it. Again, no one knew. It was kind of one of those things where I would go out, I would kind of, lie to my mom, be like, yeah, I'm, going out to Hollywood, to a bar, not a gay bar.
Meeting people.
Yeah. And I just remember I think I had, started dating, and that was an utter mess and confusing. And on Valentine's Day of that year, I just got my heart broken, and I saw Ellen Page's coming out speech at the HRC, I believe. And I remember watching that, and I was just like bawling. I'm very emotional, as you can tell. So I just remember just every word resonated with me so much. And I was like, oh man. So I shut off my computer and I went into my car and I called my brother. And at that time, my brother was living in New York. So he was like 3 hours ahead. So it was like 3 a.m. his time. And I was like, I'm like crying, and he's, worried. He's like, oh my God, like, are you okay? What happened? Did you kill someone? Like, what's going on? I was like, oh my God. Like, I'm just like, like that panic crying where you're just like catching your breath. And he's like, relax. What's going on? It's like, I have something to tell you, promise you're still going to love me. I'm still the same person. He's like, oh my gosh, like, what's going on? And then I tried so hard to say these words. And then finally I just blurted out, I'm gay. And he's like, oh, it's okay. Like, that's okay. Like, he's like, I knew, but it's okay. You can relax. And even in that moment of like telling him, it was just, I could genuinely feel like this weight being lifted off me, that I had carried for so many years. And especially that I got to tell, someone who I love so dearly and someone so close to me, I think helped for sure. But, I think it definitely, I think when you're growing up, you're like, how would you kind of, imagine scenarios of like how you're going to come out, and it just happened so unexpectedly. And I never in a million years would have thought on Valentine's Day, at midnight, to my brother, crying hysterically and all of this. So that was a secret we had kept for a while until one afternoon I went to lunch with my mom, and we were just kind of talking, and then I was going out and all of that. And she just happened to ask, why are your friends all gay? You're not gay, right? And I was like, I could feel like my blood rushing and was feeling hot. And I was like, oh God, this is the moment. This is it. And I didn't want to turn back anymore. I had, been suffocated for all this time. And I felt this was her kind of anchor to kind of release me. And I was like, okay, I'm gay. And then she took it well, and she cried, and we both cried, and I couldn't have asked for a better reaction from my whole family, because I had these I think I underestimated their unconditional love, because that was my biggest fear, was I don't want to hurt them. I don't care if I have to live in this closet. I would rather that than have them get hurt. So it was nice.
God. And how is that? I'm curious to hear when you told your brother and he said, yeah, I know. Like, how is that to hear? I
think at the time I was like, and you couldn't ask me instead of me.
We could talk about this.
This could have been so much easier. Oh man. I think it was, I think in their hearts of hearts, they kind of knew, but you're kind of just waiting for, the right time for someone to, to tell you, right, and all of that. I assume.
Because you don't want to take that moment away from somebody.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have your coming out moment and your coming out story, even though people are like, I know, we've always known. Like, because you don't want to, kind of rain on that moment. But at the same time, it must be so reassuring that he knew all along and loved you, of course.
Yeah, that it wasn't, oh my God, like jaw-dropping surprise.
Brand new information.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny because usually at this point in the interview, I ask, what do you make of what's happened with the women's movement in the last 4 years? But here we are, women's movement, pandemic, Black Lives Matter, you're a very high risk category. I'm hoping you're not even leaving your house. What do you make of all of it? How about these times we're living in?
These are crazy times. I mean, it's been unbelievable. Honestly, I never thought we would be here during a pandemic. That's for sure. But I think this is the time where I think subconsciously, I think everyone kind of needed like a restart, like a pause, kind of really recenter, refocus. So I've just been kind of focusing on that, working on this film obviously has been, the priority, but also kind of just recentering and kind of, health and mind, soul, and everything. I think it's been nice to reevaluate certain things and, obviously, I mean, just really be grateful, because there's a lot of things happening and a lot of people that are going through some stuff. So I think this is the time to create and the time to just be kind and really just, for one to, try to make a difference, if they can, because we need that. So whatever difference that could be. Mm-hmm.
I've been feeling like if we've ever had the message that life is short and let's decide what we're going to do going forward, because we were so on autopilot and just spinning out of control. Are you writing?
I am writing. Yeah. I've been writing. I've been watching a lot of documentaries and stuff. And it's been nice to just, have a nice routine where, you're, doing this. And then from here to there, you'll be writing and then you go out on a walk. And it's been nice.
Do you have a day job?
I do. Yes. At,
what do you do?
Universal Studios at the theme park.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, the theme park.
Yes.
Wow. So you're home, I imagine.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Good. Okay. So what is next for you?
Next is, just if we can keep this short, opening doors and, getting as much exposure and people watching it, it would be nice to have the feature follow it. That would be nice.
Are you trying to raise money for the feature? Like, are you looking to do your own indie films or to be a director for hire? What are you hoping?
Any would be nice because it was, this is the second project that we've crowdfunded, and that's not easy. And nor am I a huge fan of, asking people for money and, just bombarding them,
hard.
Through Facebook and Instagram and all of that. And I've been so fortunate, and I'm so thankful to, all the people who have supported both projects,
What platform did you use to fundraise?
Indiegogo. We used Indiegogo. But yeah, like the first, I guess I call it my first, but Times Like These, we crowdfunded. That was the last project I shot in New York, actually, before I moved out here. And that one is a story, dedicated to my mother. It's about her experience, dealing with domestic abuse and how she was able to get out of that situation with her 2 children and all of that. So yeah, that, was my first time ever using crowdfunding. And because other than that, there was no way we were going to, raise the funds we needed to make that picture. And then for the second time around, again, it all comes down to the money, unfortunately, which is sad because I wish that weren't the case, that, people need to get paid, things need, locations need to get paid. You need money to make
it's show business.
Happen. Yeah, it is.
Can we see your other work?
Yeah, I believe I put out the Times Like These. It's out on YouTube. If you just, I can send you a link too. But
we'll link to it.
I released it online. It had been a few years now, so I think it was right, especially with everything that was happening with like Me Too and all of that. And I was like, this is a good time for people to see.
The time is now.
Yeah.
How can people reach you?
At Lorena Gordon on Instagram. Instagram's pretty much, yeah. Or they can follow.
That's your spot. That's where we met.
Yeah. Or At Last Film is the Instagram for our film. And that's where we kind of keep people updated. And once we start screening, that's obviously where we'll share the news.
Okay. So I'll tag those as well. What advice do you have for people coming up behind you?
This is when I think back to what we had said earlier of like growing up in New York and, you know, that hustle that it kind of instills in you and that drive. And, you know, I'm thankful for all of that because there's no way in hell that you can make it if you don't hustle, you don't have that drive and that hunger. I feel like you have to love being a filmmaker and loving, like really love it because it's not easy. And there's a lot of no's and a lot of closed doors. Even making this film alone, like if just the stories I can tell you, you just have to take no for an answer and really, you know, just find another way through that door, you know, because you just have to fight for what you believe in. And just you have to love it. So I would tell people that if they love it, this is their path. But if they are kind of like wishy-washy, think it's cool, think it's easy because it's not easy, then it's probably not for you. Not their. Yeah.
Now, have you been able to find your community here in LA?
I have. It's been nice to have a community of, you know, filmmakers and then people, you know, within the, you know, disability community, LGBT communities. So it's been nice to have a bit of everything.
Oh, good. You found all your people.
Yeah.
Are you in Alliance of Women Directors and
Women in Film, Alliance of Women Directors and all of that. Even that kind of stuff too. Like when I was looking for help or, you know, opportunities, I mean, I don't know. I think they weren't given to me. So I just kind of had to go and do it on my own. So I kind of veered out of that sector of, you know, going to all these groups and organizations and kind of doing my own thing.
You just got to make it happen.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts you want to leave us with?
I'm just so excited as to what's going to come out of this quarantine, you know, story-wise. And just, I think there's just a lot that's going to come out of this creatively. So I'm excited to see what that is.
Yeah, it feels like we have this opportunity to really kind of have a whole new world. And if we ever needed storytelling and empathy and all of that, let's do it.
Time. Yeah.
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 Thank you so much. It was so nice to meet you.
Yeah, same here, Julie. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This was so much fun.
You've been listening to The Other 50%, a history of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank Lorena Gordon for sharing her story, and special thanks to Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on your favorite podcast provider and leave a review. And of course, on our website, theother50percent.com, all spelled out, for added features, bios of our guests, and merch. You can also follow us on all the social media platforms. Thanks for listening. See you next time.